Welcome everyone to the Town of Brookfield Select Board meeting Thursday, November 7th, 2024. Please stand and pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. A reminder, a special town meeting will be held at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, November 12th, 2024 at the Brookfield Elementary School in the cafeteria gymnasium. Household Hazardous Waste Day will be held on Saturday, November 16th, 2024 from 9 a.m. to noon at North Brookfield Recycling Center. Brookfield residents can drop off up to 10 gallons, 10 pounds of household hazardous waste at no charge. Log into brookfieldma.us for details. A winter parking ban will be in effect from November 15th through April 1st. There'll be no parking on any streets between the hours of 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Vehicles in violation will be ticketed and towed at owner's expense. Also, snow or ice removed from driveways, sidewalks, or private property shall not be plowed, shoveled, or blown across any public way, street, or roadway. Signed warrants.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have two warrants. First one is fiscal year 25-09, accounts payable in the amount of $214,100.63. And the second warrant is fiscal year 25-09, payroll in the amount of $199,108.65.
Thank you. First on the list, Patty. Tax classification hearing.
So I think we need a motion to open the public hearing, so I'll give you that motion.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So I'm Patty King. I'm here for the assessor's office for the fiscal year 2025 tax classification hearing. The tax classification hearing is held for the Board of Selectmen to vote on whether to have a single or a split tax rate. Historically, Brookfield has always voted for a single tax rate option. There are three tax policy options that the Board of Selectmen must decide and vote on. I'm not sure how you've done it in the past. Do you want me to go through all three questions and then go back and you can vote on them, or do you want to go through one at a time? I don't know how you've done it.
I mean, historically, I think what we've done is just gone through an overview of the three and
Okay,
done
and then
done a motion to address all three questions.
So I'll just read the three questions and then you can go back.
So have all of you had a chance to read through this and
No.
understand it?
No.
Okay. Yeah, then go ahead and read it. That'd be great.
All right, the first one is to establish the residential tax factor. If the town agrees to a single tax rate for all property classes, the residential factor would be 1. Any number lower than 1 would shift some of the tax burden from residential to CIP, which is commercial, industrial, and personal property. Usually, to be effective, a community should have at least 35% of its total property value as CIP. Currently, Brookfield has 7.5329% of the total property value in the CIP classes, broken down as commercial 2.8525%, industrial 0.8430%, and personal property 3.8374%. That is not enough to reduce the residential tax rate. It is the opinion of the Board of Assessors that Brookfield does not have enough CIP value for any shift. And a shift in tax rate would certainly generate abatement applications and could dampen any new commercial or industrial growth or construction. The Board of Assessors recommends a residential factor of 1.
So
So do you want
make a motion to?
Or do you want to, Do you want me to keep going through all of them?
I think what, typically we've had them read through all of them.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
kind of a
All right.
single motion, because I think where we're gonna land is the same place we have, which would be a motion to, vote a tax factor of one, and to not, adopt either the residential or small commercial exception, but let's go through the rest of the information so people understand why.
Okay. So, and then the next question is to vote to adopt a residential exemption. And a residential exemption shifts some of the tax burden from domiciled properties to non-domiciled properties. This would require a substantial percentage of non-domiciled properties to have any effect. There are very few communities in Massachusetts that use this shift. It's usually larger metropolitan communities with large apartment populations, or communities with a large number of second homes in resort communities such as Cape Cod. Brookfield does not have enough non-domiciled properties to consider this option. I figured it out. Look, I did a report, and it was less than 15% of the properties. And in the past, the Board of Selectmen have voted not to adopt a residential exemption. And the third one is to vote to adopt a small commercial exemption. A small commercial exemption would shift the tax burden within the CIP class. Qualifying commercial properties must have a value of $1 million or less and 10 or fewer employees. This exemption shifts the tax burden onto all other non-qualifying commercial properties. The state of Massachusetts tracks the eligible properties and provides a list of communities. There are no qualifying properties in Brookfield. In the past, the Board of Selectmen has voted not to adopt a small business exemption. Once you have voted on the 3 tax policies, the Board of Assessors will sign the LA5 on the DLS Gateway. The town clerk will sign to certify this meeting. And once they have signed, the town administrator or a member of the select board must also sign the LA5. And as always, if you have any questions regarding assessments or the assessment process, please contact the assessor's office so that we can answer your questions.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote a residential tax factor of 1.0, that we vote to not adopt a residential exemption, and to also not adopt a small commercial exemption.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Well, thank you very much, Patty.
Thank
Did a
you.
good job.
Okay.
All right. So do we want to go out of order to get Amy out of here?
We have actually 3 people here for the
Okay,
first item, number 2.
okay, let's do that then.
But I will make a motion for the chair to take the items on the agenda in whatever order he deems fit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, number 2, I guess, we could do.
Yeah.
Uh,
So who has a point on this one?
Not me.
Bob, did you come here to speak to item number 2?
Depending upon where you guys go with this.
Well, I think it would help if you actually kick us off. If you kick us off, then it gives us some room to move.
I'm Bob Falter, I'm the chairman of the Board of Assessors. And as you know, Patty has taken over the lion's share of the assessor's office, working with a consultant, Roy. That has been very effective. But I also think that because of the amount of work she's doing, she's not operating just as a clerk, right? And is not just putting in data input. She's generating reports like you just saw, and has been meeting with the public, been meeting with Lori, meeting with other interested parties. Fortunately, we have Mr. Chafee also on the board with us. And we think, as a board, that she should be compensated for the work that she does. We have recommended somewhere between $28 and $30 an hour, which we think is a reasonable compensation, since the principal assessor was making in the neighborhood of about $37 or $38. She's not an assessor. She's an assistant assessor, at least on our board, and we believe that she's should be compensated appropriately for this work. And we also recommend that it go retroactive back to July 1st. Any questions?
Yeah, the only question I have is 28 to 30. If we were to hone in on one number, which would it be?
I'll be honest with you. Being a real estate broker, I went with the 30, and I was waiting for a counter.
Okay.
So no one has ever said to me, "Yeah, okay, Bob, fine," at least in my 20 years in the business. So, I mean, if we had my druthers, I think she's worth 30.
Yeah.
But I also know that the three of you are looking at town budget and compensation levels and things like that. So we'd like your input and see what we can come to a reasonable number to compensate her.
I had one question for our accountant. Do you know off the top of your head what we budgeted for this? Just want to make sure we have the money in the budget to,
And would it,
well, we dropped it considerably.
We did dump it out at town meeting.
and what is the, how many hours a week?
It's approximately 20,
Right,
max is
yeah,
20
it's not a, right.
a week.
So you put in more than 24 or 24?
Average 24, the last few weeks that
Yeah.
a little more, but the other weeks that
We put in 35,000 at town meeting. We've spent just over 10,000 already. So I did calculate the numbers with another member of the board this afternoon. We do have enough just to squeeze by at 24 hours a week at $30 an hour.
I'm going to make a motion to put a rate at $29 an hour and give a little flexibility there, so in case she does put in a few more hours, she can be compensated for it.
And that can be retroactive?
I would make that motion retroactive. She's been doing a job
Yeah.
since then, and I'm
Yeah.
in full support of that.
And so let me just understand this, because if we go 30 at 24, then we're up at the threshold, is that what it is?
30 at 24, you were going to max the budget out, so you did not have room for retro at 30. So you will not have room for retro at 20.
Oh, we won't.
You would be able to possibly move some.
I was going to say transfer towards the end of the year.
You could do a transfer. We did budget in the expense line, we budgeted 62 and some change. I don't know what our ending number with the consultant will be.
That's a lot of consultant money.
We've only
Up to-
spent 20,000.
That's what I was going to say, that's an
Yeah.
awful lot of consultant
Yeah.
money.
Up to date, it's been relatively low.
Yeah, and because of the work that she's doing, right? That-
Absolutely.
Because of the work she's doing, we're spending a crap ton less on the consultant. So,
Because it is payroll, we can deficit spend it and do a transfer in May.
Yeah.
To cover the difference.
yeah, so I'll second the 29.
Okay. Any discussion?
Patty, are you good with that?
Say no. Do I hear 29.50?
Well, I want to thank you for your good work and your dedication.
I got a couple of questions, if you mind.
You want to tell the town what she's getting currently per hour? What is it?
24.
Okay. And why are we going back retroactive at this time? Why wasn't this brought forward before now? I mean, all of a sudden now we're just, I mean, is this a precedent that we're going to start taking with other people too?
She's been doing a job
Well-
since the new fiscal year,
Okay.
and she didn't get a bump from her lower salary from more of just a clerk, and she's been pretty much running the whole department.
So why is this not being brought up before now, is my point,
Get
my
biased.
question.
It got biased, Dave. That's all I can say.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat.
Discuss award tree contract, 15 trees in the back. Do you want to hit Amy first? Okay,
That should be quick. I think there should be more discussion
Uh,
on the trees.
Council on Aging Director appointment.
Make a motion to appoint Amy Golden as our council on the aging director.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You wanna-
Am I correct in assuming that's immediate? Sort
Yeah,
of.
I would think so.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it had the support of the council on the aging, though it was a somewhat split vote. But that's the will of the council, so. You gonna have fun with that?
Thank you.
And that Cameron's not here, right?
I don't believe so.
Yep, we'll go to trees.
Hey, Dennis.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good. So I'm here tonight to ask the council to award the 15-tree contract that we posted. At a previous select board meeting, I was asked to put out a contract for 15 trees. I rewrote the contract specifically for 15 trees. I identified 15 trees, marked them. I picked trees that I believed were large, a little more technical, the kind of trees I was hoping to have a professional contractor do rather than the highway department. For instance, one of the trees on Rice Corner Road is a large two-stem oak. The one leader is 46 inches in diameter. It leans over a resident's driveway and towards their house. The other leader is a 20-inch diameter that hangs over an uncoated primary wire. Technical, difficult trees is what I put on this contract. I estimated the trees to cost somewhere between $17,000 and $17,500. With Lindsay's help, we put out a bid package. We received 6 bids, 5 of which were eligible. We had a bid opening on October 31st, opened the sealed bids, and the bids ranged from $16,565 all the way up to $25,000. 2 of those bids, I believe, were outliers. One was $20,000, one was $25,000. The other 4 hovered around the $17,000 mark, which is where I estimated the contract to cost. And I guess I'm here tonight to ask you to take a vote to award the bid so we can get out there and start cutting down some more trees.
I don't see a list of the contractors and their bids in here. Is there a reason for that?
I have,
I have an easier question.
Okay.
The one over the power line that you mentioned,
yeah.
why wouldn't that be National Grid?
National Grid typically only wants to do major transmission lines. And I can request, and I have requested several times to get them to do things, and they pretty much do what's in their best interest for their lines.
Because I know they came down Allen Road and did a lot of
They
trees.
did.
So
That
is
was
that
in-
considered more primary or
Well, they've done already all the work they're going to do this year, and in the coming month, I'm gonna ask them for their plan for the next year.
Yeah.
So they're on Gay, I saw them on Gay Road working, and I've spoken to Brandy in the past. She's.
Yeah, Brandy
in charge.
Tarantino, yeah.
She's in the past, so I have a call into her to find out about this large red oak that you're talking about.
Okay.
Because I have another concern with it. It appears to me it's on private property. It does not, I do not think that's a town tree.
Okay,
So that's the first one that I identified as not a town tree. And then there were several others on Gay Road that are clearly over the stone wall and look like they're not town trees.
So I use two sources for determining the property right-of-way within the town. One, I got information from the town highway department. And every one of these trees within the information I got from the highway department falls within the town right-of-way that I measure each one before I mark them. I also often go to Mass Mapper because sometimes the right-of-ways vary.
Yeah. How
From,
much?
not only from road to road, but within the same road. So I use two sources to try to verify that the trees are within the town's right-of-way.
But the stone walls are clearly the,
Typically, a stone wall
Yeah.
is a boundary line, but both of those sources say that the right-of-way is further back than the stone wall.
well, that's the number one concern for me is the trees not on town property. But then some of the other trees that I identified that you have on here, and I spoke with the water department, a couple of them are up at the
Yes.
tower. I don't think the town, I don't think that we should be doing the ones on the water department. And as well as the cemetery, I talked to the cemetery commissioner. They said that, or it was Mike Siri, he said that in the past, they bid their own trees out rather than put it out. So,
So I don't see any of what you're talking about on this list.
Some of the trees that I put on this are on the cemetery,
this is the list.
and two are by the water
So
tower.
what is this list?
But all of those trees do
Those
fall
are
on
trees
town
that have
property.
been completed by the
Oh,
highway.
sorry. Do I have, I don't have,
You don't have a copy?
I don't have a copy of that.
Dennis, that's what, I'm looking at the email that you sent me, this is what was sent.
That was completed work that's already done. This is, I didn't make copies, I'm sorry, but
Okay.
I can read through the list of the trees, but every one of the trees are on town property.
So, I'm less concerned if we're including trees that other departments typically take care of, because if we're bucketing together the town's trees, and we're picking the ones that are the most technically difficult and pose the greatest,
But that's not necessarily the case. The two at the water department are really easy trees. The one tree that would be very difficult that Dennis identified, and it is difficult, is at Lewis Field.
Lewis
And
Field,
I don't
that's
have a problem.
right next to the
I don't
pavilion.
have a problem with
Yeah.
that. I think that's
Yeah.
a good use of this.
Yeah.
However, again, I'm gonna go back to the cost of over $1,000 a tree
Which
to
is-
sub it out. We're not getting the best bang for our buck,
I
and I've
disagree.
talked to members of the highway committee as well, and they're in full agreement that, I know you keep saying that safety is a big issue. Safety is an issue. But for 50 years that I know of, the highway department has done the trees with the assistance of a bucket truck. And at this rate, Dennis, in the list that you provided, we're doing 5 to 7 trees on average. And again, I don't think we'll get 5 to 7 out of the ones you identified at the 15, but we'll get several. However, the reason we asked for the 15 trees to be looped in a separate bid packet was to see if we could bring the cost down per tree.
no, that's actually not how, what we.
That's how I
no.
remember it.
So
But
how
Can
I,
I finish?
okay, sure. Finish.
So, that's my recollection, and that's my intent, was to see if we could bring the cost down by looping a bunch together. Because initially, last year, you did 79 trees with $60,000 approximately. And that came to like $701 per tree, right?
Yeah,
Is that
about that, it sounds right.
And then, after going through the past records of the highway department, they were averaging $340 per tree. And the previous highway boss had a lot of records to that.
Yeah.
So,
So-
now I know you can argue the cost of $340 a tree is not the real cost, because we're putting highway employees there to help, right?
Yeah, it's not
The
close
one
to the
thing,
real cost.
the one thing you got away with, and I don't know how you got away with it last time when you did it, but you didn't have detailed police officers,
Yes.
right?
But we worked with private property resident, a lot of residents were happy just to have the trees removed, so we were able to access private property to stay off the road, so we didn't have to use
But
a
that's not
detail.
entirely true, because there are a lot of it, I witnessed that the truck was in the street and it was done on the weekend, so it was less likely to draw attention that a police officer would be present. But I'm being told that that is not happening again. So when we now figure the $480 approximately for a police officer, then the tree work, the numbers start climbing fast. And when we have the highway department do it with the tree people, we have those guys already staffed, and they're here, and we're gonna pay them no matter what.
True,
So you can't take their hourly rate for that day, because there's a lot of days that there's nothing else they're gonna be doing if they're not doing tree work. And the highway department has done that, like I say, 50 years that I'm aware of. And speaking to the past highway department officials and employees, superintendents and employees, they said they wouldn't know what they would do had they not done the tree work. There wouldn't have been anything to do. And then lastly, you talked about safety, but we've never had an issue with tree work. And again, 50 years that a bucket truck has assisted the highway department. And there's a lot of circumstances where, when Herb Chafee was the highway superintendent, he would put the bucket up against the tree and push it into the woods and launch it. There are so many of those trees up on Long Hill Road that could be done with, rather than taking them down. And I look at the work that's being done. It's slowly but staggering what's happening, how long it's taken to bring a tree down all along the state property to cut into 4 to 6 inch chunks instead of launching the whole tree. And in years past, I can see the old dead trees that were cut and launched in the woods and are still there.
But if it's state property, we can't really launch a tree onto someone else's property and just leave it.
And we,
It's on
unfortunately, we have.
Yeah.
We have done that for 30 years that I'm aware of.
See,
I don't think we,
And we've never
that's
had a
good
complaint.
point.
Okay, I'm just saying typically you can't launch a tree onto someone else's property and not clean it up.
I can think of on my street now that actually they have launched it onto other
And-
people's property.
and it
It's
looks
been a
awful.
common practice.
Yeah,
But I'm agreeing with
not-
Dennis,
You know,
they
he's
should,
agreeing with
appropriate.
Dennis
I'm
that
agreeing
whether
with
it's
Dennis,
a,
they shouldn't
whether
be
it's a
probably
common,
doing that.
whether it's a common practice or not, just because it's common doesn't mean that it's right.
Yeah.
It's not appropriate and it looks awful.
Well,
but
last year, Jimmy Russ, your guys did it on Town Farm Road.
everything they did last year, they went back and cleaned up.
No,
Yes, they
No.
did. Everything they did last year,
Dennis,
they
I'll
went
show
back
you.
and cleaned.
You come back next meeting
All right,
and I'll take pictures
if
of
he
the
missed
trees
one,
on the
I'll
weekend.
send him back to clean it up
Yeah.
because we paid
But
him for
I'm
it.
just saying, it does happen.
All right. My point is with the highway department, if you do just a back of an envelope calculation, and this is a way underestimate, you're talking, let's say, just to make the numbers simple, $25 an hour per employee, times 4 employees, that's $100 an hour. An 8-hour workday, now we're at $800, plus the contractor's $1,200 for the area lift and the employee. Now we're at $2,000 a day. To maximize the use of the area lift, we have the town employees work with them, doing area lift work all day. They go back on another day to clean up the wood, which is more hours, more time, and then a wood disposal fee wherever they're getting rid of the wood. So we're at $2,000 per day plus wood disposal, and last year a contractor was doing everything, including the wood disposal, for $1,800 a
We
day.
have never paid for wood disposal in Brookfield.
That's not true. Ryan
No, the-
had to move wood off of some site because the health department was upset with it, and he had to pay to truck that out and pay to dispose of it.
I thought he trucked it there because the guy wanted the wood, but I
No.
don't think the town.
No.
paid for it. Did
He
the
was
town?
paying
No,
to
we
remove
ended
it.
up getting, yeah.
Getting hit pretty good for it.
So my point being is that it's costing more than hiring the contractor to just use the highway department. Plus, we're opening ourselves up to the liability of an employee getting hurt or property damage. Currently, right now, if we have an incident We have the town and the contractor working. I don't know who's responsible if there's an accident. That's something for the lawyers to figure out. But I do know if a town employee gets hurt, now we own it.
So let me ask you a question.
Yes.
We already have signed a contract for the bucket truck, correct?
Yes,
So we can do that work all day long.
Absolutely.
Already,
yeah.
right? And doing these 15 trees on this contract has no impact on that, correct?
No,
It
it's a
just means
separate
that-
contract.
It just means that other trees get done,
Yeah.
correct?
I do have a,
Wait a minute,
Okay.
say that again. So
It
you're
just means
saying-
that additional trees get
You're
done.
saying to not do this 15 under the contract, but to do them under the daily rate?
No. What I'm saying is, the way that this contract was sent out, it specified which trees, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if these were the trees that were sent out, and we didn't screen it beforehand, and quite frankly, I think there may be some issues with,
I have a couple of issues.
yeah. So, on what trees were picked?
Well,
or-
not issues, I guess questions is
Okay.
better. The ones at the cemetery, why is that not coming out of the cemetery?
It's same as the water,
Right, shouldn't that come out of,
and that's my
I mean,
point.
it could, but I figured we had the warrant article there, all the trees are on town property.
yeah, but I think the cemetery should be responsible for the cemetery trees.
Okay.
As well as the water department.
I mean, I hate to put it this way, that all of their expense accounts come out of the same bucket, so, I mean, and historically speaking, I don't know how long has it been since either one of those departments has actually taken any trees down?
I've been
Frequently.
trying to-
The
well-
cemetery does it frequently.
There's a lot of trees that, I've been talking to Mike about it, there's a lot of trees that need to come down and be pruned or taken down.
Yeah, and get somebody in for the tree work. So,
I thought he was gonna get someone in for the tree
Well,
work
he
last I
has,
talked to
he
him.
has in the past, even up until just a couple of years ago.
But I had this conversation a while ago, and he
do you
still
want to take
hasn't
a
done
comment
it.
from
Yeah.
the water?
So the water department does have a meeting next Wednesday. We'd be glad to
Why don't you
add
take
that
it up?
onto our agenda
Why
to
don't you
take
take
those.
it up and whether you want it handled as
Do you
part of
know,
this
do you know what you've
contract?
done have you had to take down any trees there?
Not recently.
Yeah.
These trees are up by the water tower. They've been an issue. I know Dennis has talked with Dennis about doing
Yeah.
it. If it gets a couple more trees taken down, along the roads, the water department will address it at our next meeting.
Well, but here's the thing, I mean, and this is something to think about, right? And maybe the cemetery department doesn't wanna do it this way, but fundamentally, they could fund a portion of whatever we pay under this contract.
The problem
The,
is,
the quote went out as a town quote.
Yeah, it's probably a best deal
And
to
it's really,
package it.
it's really an accountant
Right,
issue as
right.
to like where the budget
Yeah,
comes from.
Right,
So if we choose
I think
to
that's
just-
why Dennis worked with Dennis,
Right.
figuring that that would
Exactly.
be the most
No, 'cause
cost-efficient way to
obviously-
do it.
Yeah, if you
If-
pay one tree versus
Right.
15, you're getting a better
Yeah.
deal.
That was one of the things that might recommend that the water department approach take, is that whatever your cost would be,
Just,
we
Yeah.
would
you'll
pay
just pay
it.
that portion of it.
well,
Because it's probably the most effective way to do it.
in talking to Dennis, he clearly said that these trees could just be launched in the woods, not cut up, not cleaned up, and just sent, because they're not in an area that would affect anything.
See,
They're in a
when I
wood line.
talked to Dennis, the trees are in close proximity to the water tower. He was also concerned with the access road and damaging the access road into there. And there is a fence, I believe, behind those two trees. So because of the proximity to the water tower and wanting to not disturb the roadway, I thought it would be best for a professional contractor to handle those two trees.
So if you look at the picture, there is no fence behind the two trees.
There is a fence behind the
The
trees.
fence is along here. And those trees,
Which tree are you talking?
So
big
a
one?
pine and a red
Red.
maple.
Yeah.
so they could go along the wood line and not be cleaned up, and it could be done so inexpensive. And at this rate, it's over $1,000 a tree. This is not a good deal for the town of Brookfield sending this out, and I am adamantly opposed to it.
I think the bids
So
were
the-
well within line of the cost of what it should take to
Maybe
take
your
these
cost,
trees
what you
down.
think it is, but not in the cost of what we pay when we have the highway do it. And not only that, we're getting many more trees done with the highway doing it. So you put a figure of $2,000 a tree. The problem is, you're not talking, I mean, $2,000 a day. We're getting significantly more trees done with the highway crew helping than when it was just subbed out for $1,800 a
but this-
day.
but
Those are
doesn't stop us from
roadside trees. These are
continuing.
ones that I believe are a lot more technical.
Yeah,
This
so-
is why I put them on
There's-
this contract.
But there is a couple of them that are not even on town property, that they are on the
I
property. They're
measured
clearly
every one
inside.
of them, and
You're not a surveyor, and
I'm
I'm
not a
not a
surveyor.
surveyor,
I am
but I
not a
know,
surveyor.
I know what the town wall is
Yeah.
and the property line
From the
wall.
information I got from the highway barn,
But
every
the-
one of
but the
these trees
highway
that I
department
marked is
not
within
a
town.
surveying highway
No,
department,
it's
Byron.
not,
It's
but-
not, Dennis, that's not even close. They can't, they wouldn't have any idea what his property line
Well,
is.
again, I checked two resources, Mass Mapper,
Mass
which is
Mapper's
a
good
GIS
within 10
database
feet.
which
Mr. Chair?
outlines the property lines, and
I'd
the
like to
highway
move the
department
question.
information.
I'd like to table this. I make a motion to table this. This is not a good way to spend the taxpayers' money.
So I'm going to make a motion that at the advice of our volunteer, certified, and been doing a good job for the town tree warden, that we accept this, that we, that we accept this contract in parallel with our daily work and to get these trees done on the discrete contract. And if there's no second, then it's gonna hang there and it'll be effectively tabled.
I'm gonna make a motion that we table it till our next meeting to get more information.
I don't see a reason to hold it off for a week, because I just want to find out about the cemetery stuff. I'd like to include the cemetery in this, but I want to make sure with the town accountant that we can, because I know
that we
there's,
can
I know
divide the
there's,
days?
I know there's some weird stuff with the cemetery. Because I had talked to Mike about,
Okay.
and I just don't remember offhand what was said. But he said that he had to do it out of his budget when I asked him about using the highway department to go down there.
Oh, so he couldn't even use their regular daily contract is what he said?
No, he
because-
wasn't doing anything with any of the town because he said it was a cemetery, the cemetery has budget for this, you know, and I know there's, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but it's kinda like a library, like they're their own entity kinda, but they're not. Am I wrong?
So it only depends on if they're spending one of their particular, like, set-aside funds.
Yeah,
So if it's the money that the town gives them for, like, cemetery expenses, it frankly doesn't really
Yeah.
matter.
So
okay?
it's
I mean,
more-
I guess what I'm getting,
What
yeah.
what you're doing is you're actually just doing what we've started to do with a lot of expenses, which is centralized, like electric and fuel and what have you.
Yeah.
Right, instead of having it be pieced out to the different expense accounts, and then a year that they don't have to do trees, suddenly they have this windfall and they start, spending it on whatever the heck.
But the
they
water
want to spend.
department would not fall into that same category. The
So
water
water-
department would be different.
Well, water capital is funded by the water fees, but the expense budget actually comes from the town, correct? Or does yours come from,
No, they're a self-sufficient entity.
they're not a fully
But they're not an
self-sufficient-
enterprise.
They're not an
Supposed to be.
enterprise. They're not an
The
enterprise.
goal is to be.
Actually, it's not, because if you ever made them a self-sufficient enterprise, we'd have to start paying, the town would have to start paying them for the fire hydrants, and it gets
Well,
stupid.
it wouldn't be right
but-
for a resident on Town Farm Road to pay for the water department's issue that you get the service being on Central Street, but someone in the outlining does not get the benefit of that. So why wouldn't it come from the water user?
I would like to point out, regardless of the water budget, the water tower and the land it sits on belongs to the town.
Of
All
course,
of these
every
trees
tree-
are on town property, and I don't see that it's inappropriate to use town funds to remove trees from town property.
The water department is pretty much self-sustaining. The water users support the budget. A
Understand?
resident on the outskirts of town that does not use the water should not be paying to take a tree down at the water department.
But it's
So I
town
tell you what,
property.
I'll make a motion that we, give the chair authority to sign this if he figures out with the accountant and the other departments that the budget can be appropriately apportioned to the responsible departments.
I won't be seconding that, absolutely not. The cost is too high per tree. Especially when we look at the one on Rice Corner Road that the tree warden said is over the primary and should be done by National Grid, not the residents. That's what they get paid for.
I will also point out that National Grid has a right-of-way for their power lines. They don't own the tree, we own the tree.
Then why-
And they
why
will
do
only work
trim?
on the tree if it is in their interest to protect their line. And obviously, they have not decided that this is a threat to their line, but the tree is a threat to the road and to the residents in the area.
That's not so, because 3 years ago, Mandy Tarantino came to town and took out 240 trees
Yes.
in Brookfield.
She does.
Some of them were not even their responsibility, but she did it to a courtesy for the town. And if we get a hold of her again, and shame on me that I didn't call her sooner. I called her today, and I was not able to make contact, but I'm relatively certain she's gonna do a tree like that. And that tree is probably the most expensive one of the whole 15, and probably 1/5 of the cost to do that tree.
A tree, I think, would take a crew a day to a day and a half. I estimated a tree to cost about $2,500.
Well, if it was a day and a half, it'd be 3,000.
Well,
So, but
yeah.
that is the most expensive tree, and if we
Yes.
can get that done by National Grid,
And I
Good
will
for the
tell you this too,
residents.
National Grid would only take the one stem going over the wire, not the one leaning toward the house,
fair enough.
if they were to do it at all. Again, I think these prices are well within, I disagree with Rich. This is not a bad price for these trees. These are technical, complicated, large trees.
So what,
I disagree.
oh, that's interesting, because I think you know one of the folks that bid on the contract who wasn't the lowest bidder, so that they must be really expensive.
What does that matter, Beth? What shot are you trying to throw? What does that matter? Is that something like you meeting with with David Fromm again, when I asked that that all be done in open public meeting? But you continue to meet with him in private? You wanna throw shots across the bow?
So,
I'm saying the contract is too much, no matter if I know someone or I'm related to someone to bid on it. I think the trees should go to Jim Rust at $1,200 a day with the highway doing it, because that's what's good for our residents. I'm not suggesting someone I know get it. Jim Rust got the 15 trees, and Jim Rust has the daily rate. And I'm suggesting that's the best case for Brookfield. And you wanna know how I know, Beth? Because that's the type of work I do daily.
I think these trees are technical, a little bit above the ability of the town highway department, which is why I selected them.
I'll tell
I
you
think
what,
these
Dennis,
are-
I could go up to the water department by myself and take both those trees out in 3 hours.
I disagree. I don't think you could, because there's a fence behind them, and they're in proximity of the water tower. You may be able to drop them, but you'll probably hit something and break it.
I haven't done it yet, so
Okay.
this is not
Look,
a
I-
good way to do it for
I'm
Brookfield.
a certified
mean,
arborist. I've
this
been doing
is-
this for 25 years. This is
Been
what I
in-
do for a profession.
I've been in the excavation and tree business for 30 years.
Okay.
I don't have an education in it, but I sure have the calluses to prove I've done it and done it well.
Like, in my professional opinion, I would prefer not to use the highway department for these trees.
I mean, looking at the sizes, I mean,
Brad, we've been taking down enormous trees with the highway department. We have chainsaws down at the highway department as big as any tree company.
And I've talked
We have
to-
12 chainsaws down there.
and I've talked to the highway department, I've talked to Lindsay, and I've talked to Mike, and both of them have said, this is not something that, let's hear from,
So, that's true. There are a lot of chainsaws down there. There were previous highway employees who were very adept at running those. Quite frankly, we don't have those personnel right now, and we're playing 5 years of catch-up to catch up on work that hasn't been done. And so, yes, maybe using the highway does help out, but they're not doing something else. And like I say, we are trying to do catch-up. There's a lot of work that we still remain to be done, and we're making progress. We're spending a Tuesday and another half a day on tree work, which means something else isn't happening.
We're coming to a point where there's nothing else to be done. The lawn mowing is done. The only thing that they did this time of year typically was inside repairs, and the inside repairs, we can no longer do in-house.
Because we don't have the expertise, kind of the same way as the trees.
But
So,
not
so
necessarily.
we,
Hiring a
so
tree
we,
expert.
we do have a lot to do. As a matter of fact, we're meeting on November 20th with the engineer on Gay Road. There's a lot of preliminary work to be done in order to get that road ready, and we could start it now, and
As long as the weather holds.
as long as the weather holds, right. Once it freezes, then,
It
you know,
freezes, but
you have to
right
wait
now
until
we've
spring. But if we catch up, we talked about this yesterday at our highway meeting, and using the grader to, you know, clean up some of the edges.
But in talking to Bruce Clark also, he also agreed that the tree work needs to be done by the highway department, as it's been done for many years because
So
of the cost.
we
And
talked
Let me
about-
say one more thing.
Yep.
The town of Brimfield has doubled the lane miles that we have. They're under $20,000 a year for their tree budget because they manage it well. This is not being managed well.
Well-
I think we're, in no disrespect to our highway department, but I feel like they're not, I wouldn't want them out there doing the tree work.
I'd like to bring up one
They've
more
been
point.
doing it.
I know, but I talked to Mike, and
I'd like to bring
It's a
up
lot of-
another point. With the technical removal with the bucket truck with an operator, we don't have an operator on the ground that has the experience to run the ropes that are gonna be necessary to lower some of these larger pieces without damaging driveways, structures such as water towers, houses. And no offense against the highway department, they don't have that experience or the skill or to do these trees.
yeah, I don't want
Which
them
is why I
taking down
put them on this
42-inch
contract.
trees, 39-inch tree, you know.
So I go back to my motion that hasn't been seconded yet, which is pending your determination with the accountant and the appropriate department heads to authorize you to accept or reject the bids on this contract pending the funding determination.
And this is everything soup to nuts.
This is everything, a contract that does everything. I also put a time frame on this because I wanted it completed, and I didn't know when we put this bid out exactly what it cost. I estimated what it would cost, but I didn't know what the bids would come in at. So I put a 4-month time frame on this, that I want this done so I know what was left in the budget going forward. So that's another reason why I asked to have it awarded, because that time frame is already started from the day of the end of the bid.
Read it back for me. First one was that motion to give the chair authority to find out if the budget can be appropriately apportioned to the proper parties. The second one said pending determination from account, I didn't catch the rest.
Yeah, basically pending a determination from the accountant authorizing him to sign it if the funding can be appropriately divided amongst the departments.
I'll second for the discussion. So, have we set a date when we're meeting next? Are we meeting, we're gonna have I'm sorry?
On the 21st.
So is 2 weeks gonna make that big a difference,
No,
Dennis?
I gave ample time. I gave a 4-month
Yeah,
time
'cause I'd
frame
like
for
to get-
15 trees.
So I'd
And I'll
like,
go along with that, because I'd like to
well,
get
I-
Lindsay here
well,
as
we'd
well.
like to take the vote, so. The motion has been made, I seconded it, we're in discussion.
So,
If you call for a vote, I'd like, if it doesn't pass, I'm gonna make another
If it
motion.
passes, you have it basically, we're ceding responsibility to you to determine whether or not to sign the contract and when to sign the contract.
well, I mean, if we want to wait another, if it's not going to be
Well, we
any
need to
impact.
deal with our motion first.
Right, so,
It's been seconded, we need to take a vote.
all right, so we'll vote.
I vote no.
No, I'll vote no, just to push
So then I'll make a motion that we just table it for 2 weeks to get more information.
Well, do we have to make a vote to
No,
table?
we don't.
No.
No,
No.
you just put it on the
No,
agenda
we
and
just
you're
put it on
done.
the agenda.
Okay? Deal.
I'm assuming,
Can I just
yep,
weigh in on this? Difficult trees or not, technical, 36 or 48 inches, the highway department has always done the work, no matter how difficult the trees are. Mike's been cutting trees with the highway for at least 5 years that I know of. Okay, he's running the bucket, he's running the payloader, whatever. I don't understand why we are not, we're trying to take the highway department out of the equation here.
We're not.
No, we have
Well-
a contract with them.
The balance of the trees are gonna be.
still the highway.
Still the
What-
highway department. These are just
Why are
their
we,
trees.
why are we trying to do a separate contract for these specific 15 trees? You don't even know if they're on town property. You got, there's some in the water tower, some in the cemetery, you don't even know if they're on private property. And you're trying to make a decision on what to do tonight? I mean, you gotta know, before you even vote on the contract, you gotta know where these trees stand. Who's cutting what? And it's a budgetary issue. When I was on the advisory board with you, Beth, if it belongs to a budget, their department, it's their budget. And tonight you brought that up. You should find out whose budget is gonna cut the trees. We should be cutting trees that are dangerous along the road, not trees in the cemetery or at the water department. Let them handle it. You know what I'm saying?
I will say this, that my job as an arborist, most people think is to maintain tree health and watch out for insects, pathogens, and disease, but most of my job as an arborist is to mitigate risk. All of these trees are on town property. There are hazardous trees in a cemetery where people walk and visit their loved ones. The water tower, maybe not so much, but that was a technical one. But every one of these trees, to my knowledge, to double checking 2 sources, fall within town property. And the town awarded us at the annual town meeting a warrant article to help deal with a lot of these dead trees in town. And I was here to ask you to vote on this so we could get rid of some of those dead trees in town. And like I said, some of the more technical ones that I would prefer not to use the highway department for, to avoid property damage or injury.
But why are these trees any different from the last 40 years that we've been cutting trees? I watched the highway cut trees 4 feet in diameter.
The highway department is a lot different than it was 40 years ago.
And maybe so,
It
but
is
you
very
still,
different.
you still got some key people that they're on the ground. It doesn't take a scientist to put brush to a chipper and a guy running the payloader to get rid of the wood. The guy in the bucket truck is doing all the technical work.
That's another thing. We have the highway department moving wood with a backhoe and a front-end loader. These are site machines. These are not designed to pick up wood. A log loader is designed to pick up wood.
They got forks on the payloaders. I've watched them do
Yeah,
it.
I
I've watched them
understand
do
it can be done, but it's not the right tool for the job. And if you're not using the right tool for the job, there's an increased chance of injury. It's also going to take a lot longer to do than if you had the right tool to do it.
So the last 40 years, the town of Brookfield's been doing the tree work wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I've watched them do it, and they did a good job.
I'm sure they did a great job, but I'm telling you, it's gonna take you a lot longer to move wood, to cut it to fit in a bucket, or put it on forks and try to load it into a dump truck, rather than just have the right tool for the job to move
What's the right
equipment.
tool? What's the right tool?
A log loader,
A log loader.
a machine that's designed to pick up logs and put it in a truck.
Dennis, the problem that I have is the Brookfield Highway Department and every highway department in the surrounding towns has to improvise on a daily basis.
I understand
We
that.
cannot afford.
But we are one of the
Dennis,
only-
don't interrupt.
All right.
Let me just say this. We cannot afford to do 79 trees with $60,000 like you did last year.
Isn't
That
it?
is, what?
I thought that was a
I know
really
you do,
good.
and that's why we differ. I have nothing against you personally.
Yeah.
But you think that was a great deal? I know when this highway department did over that many trees with under 20,000, and in speaking to the town of Brookfield,
find
he
that
does
hard
the
to
same thing.
I
He
find
has
that very
80,
hard to believe.
the proof is in the pudding, man. That we can look back at the,
I
we can
would
look back
love to
at
see
the
the
budget.
records on that. how you
I
could
don't
do
think-
that
I don't
tree
think-
for
I
20,000.
do, and
We have-
I
well, then-
submitted them to you guys several months ago when we were having the same conversation, and I'll duplicate them and get them back.
well, yeah, we can do that in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, you could do,
But Dennis, We can't afford to keep going down the path you're bringing us down. I'm talking about these departments improvise, and they improvise daily. And to grab a load of logs with a set of forks and throw them in a 10-wheeler is pretty quick. And in some cases, maybe quicker than a log loader, because they can grab multiple pieces in one time rather than one.
It's also dangerous.
Anything's
isn't
dangerous.
dangerous?
Everything's dangerous.
Walk
you use the right
outside
tool
and
for
cross
the-
the road, it's dangerous.
Look, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I know of no other town that currently uses
Brookfield
the
does it.
highway department rather than just completely use
Again,
this contract.
let's move, so we voted, we voted it for
Brookfield does
2
it.
weeks, let's move the question, because at this point, we're
May,
just
can I
harassing
finish?
people.
May I finish?
Brimfield does it.
May I finish? I was at the Advisory Highway Committee yesterday, and a couple of members do not understand why there's such an issue of changing and cutting our trees the way we're doing it. All of a sudden now there's a problem cutting our trees. Why? And what I come up with is ever since Dennis got on as a tree warden, it's been nothing but a problem cutting our trees in this town. And I don't know why. We used to cut trees on a regular basis. Now it's a major problem. Why? I don't get it.
I don't think,
It's not a major problem.
Well, it is, because all you're doing is just, even getting rid of the wood. We used to advertise and let all the residents know where the trees were being cut, and they'd come and be happy to take the wood. And even today now, firewood is really expensive, and people will be right down there. And what do? You go down the next day and you take the wood away. You gotta give people a chance to get the firewood. And you're saying, oh, we're gonna pay disposal fees? No.
I think it's been offered to the nearby residents of.
They don't even, a lot of residents don't even know where the trees have been cut. Come on. And then they're down there the next day taking the wood out?
No, they're not exactly the next day. They are leaving it with the hopes that residents will take it.
Yeah, but how do most residents don't even know the wood's there?
I mean, I guess we could
We used
post
to
that we're
advertise
cutting
and let
trees.
people know where the wood was, back in the day,
Might not be a bad idea.
you know?
All right, yeah.
So, back to my question is, why is such a big to-do cutting trees in this town now?
Well, let's push all this to 2 weeks.
You're gonna give me an answer in 2 weeks, Brad? On why it's,
Well, I just don't want to continue because it's not going to be productive. So we'll do it in 2 weeks when we.
You'll have 2 minutes and 2 weeks to
Yeah.
hit us some more.
okay, I'll be here.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dennis.
Host community agreement, cultivation, manufacturing.
I'm gonna recuse myself.
Yeah, okay. I mean, from what I talked around, there's not much here unless,
We don't have anything except for, I don't think,
I-
do you
I-
have copies back? Because I looked in my
Yes,
email, I haven't seen
I
anything from
have,
you on it.
yeah, I have the revised copy.
Okay, why didn't we get a copy in advance? Because I didn't see anything via email.
Oh, it is literally 2 lines that are deleted.
yeah, that's it.
Okay,
Yeah, so last week, the Cannabis Control Commission sent a rejection letter, if you will, with regards to the manufacturing and the cultivation. Those HDAs were submitted, I guess, a few weeks ago by Mr. Fromm. CCC reviewed them, they rejected them, and they rejected them for literally 2 lines, which is on page 4, section 5, under local property taxes. Let's see, right here, they objected to the phrase, I won't even call it a full sentence, quote, "The company nor its landlord shall object or otherwise challenge the taxability of such property and shall not seek a nonprofit exemption or reduction with respects to such taxes." They objected to that phrase, which, if you think about it, does kind of fit in with some of the other rejections that they had with additional fees and so on and so forth, or in any way constraining the applicant. So they rejected those. I have been in contact with Mr. Fromm's attorney. He was absolutely in favor of just redacting, taking that particular line out. And I literally have copies of both of those right here. If you all do not object to the the deletion of that particular phrase. These would be ready to be signed off by the select board and moved on. And literally, nothing else has changed.
And so what's the story with the retail? We don't know about the retail.
Retail, yeah, I believe retail, because if you recall, that was actually approved and signed at a
Right.
later date. I believe Mr. Fromm has submitted that.
Yeah.
My belief would be it's probably still being reviewed at this point. Manufacturing and cultivation were,
Did we leave that phrase in the retail, so are we expecting it to come back rejected, or?
actually, when I checked, it was not in retail.
No, and it said it in the email that it wasn't in the retail.
Yeah.
Okay, so that may have actually gone all the way through.
Well, the only thing I can think of is KP Law, when they came back with their rough draft version, for lack of a better term. It may have already been spotted by Nicole, and she may have taken that out, yes. So, I mean, literally, that is
So I'll
why
make
it
a
was
motion-
rejected.
I'll make a motion that we re-sign the host community agreements with the deletion of the one line found objectionable by the CCC
For both.
for both the manufacturing and the agricultural.
Second? Any discussion? Sure.
Did the lawyers have to review this again, that one line deletion?
It's,
Yeah, in my opinion, no, because one, it is not included in the retail version, which has been proofed and reviewed and approved, for lack of a better term, by town council. And the fact that it is, in fact, consistent with the other deletions that have been included that KP Law, once again, has reviewed and approved.
So if this gets kicked back again, then what's the stance of the select?
well, it depends on,
We're gonna continue to go down this particular road, or we're gonna take some of the other options that KP Law had put on the table?
the only other option at this point would go to the model agreement, I think, because everything keeps getting kicked back.
Right.
And I mean,
Would be going to the model agreement, the model template, because everything keeps getting kicked back.
A sign that everything keeps getting kicked back? I mean, are we now looking at taking out language that's gonna allow us to tax this land that he's gonna?
No, it's getting kicked out because they're saying we're being too strict with it.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But if the language that they're looking to take out essentially allows him to put it into, what is it, 61A?
So he would, it would allow him to put any portion that's not in use for this purpose in 61A. So fundamentally, it's, any of the improvements to the property, it's kind of like, even if something's in 61A, we're entitled to tax the barns, right? If it's bigger than, I think it's like I can't remember if it's 6 by 10 or 4 by 6 or whatever it is. It's a fairly small outbuilding, so we would still be entitled to tax. And so here's the thing, we can still, the assessor can assess it at whatever they choose to. That language took away his right to appeal a change in his taxes or to seek to put a portion of his property in 61A, right? So it leaves him with the same rights that another landowner would have if they were using the land for another purpose. So they're saying we can't abridge his rights to pursue some different tax than what we're currently assessing it at, consistent with the rights that any property owner has relative to their property.
Okay, so essentially what we're saying then is, we are able to tax any buildings in the area he's using
At whatever, at town rate.
Right.
Right, but if he felt that we were taxing him inappropriately, this language would have not allowed him to follow the normal appeal process. And so the state's saying, no, we have to give him the right to the normal appeal process.
All right, that makes sense, I can understand that.
Yeah.
That's one
Yeah,
clarify.
and they're not taking away any of the water stuff, they're not taking away any of the good neighbor, the other stuff that's in there that's protective. They didn't object to any of that, just the taxation portion.
I can understand that, you
Yeah.
know, not wanting to limit his ability, so
Right.
that makes it reasonable.
So,
You made the.
I made the motion.
And then it went to discussion, so
Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
A copy of each for your signatures.
Is there 2 copies or just one here? Hey, Ron, is there 2 copies or just one here?
Just one, I'm gonna just make a copy,
Okay.
for
Okay.
All right. You want to come back, Rich? I think we're all set, right? Affirm, edit the 2013 Master Plan Committee charge. I don't think I was taking lead.
Can I just add, is this the same committee as the Master Plan Implementation Committee that we had previously?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And is there anyone on that committee? No.
The committee consisted of Linda Pierce, who
After Phil passed.
after Phil passed was not interested. Peter Levine, Dr. Levine resigned, passed away.
Yes.
Russ Faniff moved out of
Out of
town.
town.
And I was the only one remaining. There was one other,
Was Bill Simpson on it?
I'm sorry?
Was Bill Simpson on it?
No. I think there was one other person that was appointed, but we never had another meeting. So basically, the committee is,
Defunct.
What, out of curiosity, why did the meetings stop? Because no one was going, or?
yeah, I mean, I was the only one left on it.
Oh, okay.
Russ had moved out of town.
Yeah,
Linda wasn't.
yeah, yeah, I got it.
And there, nobody,
So,
Yeah.
so are you interested to be on it? Still? Okay.
depends on who he's stuck with on the committee.
Honestly, no.
You got a pretty full plate, Don. I figured I'd start with you, seeing how you were here.
I have the old one, and I'd be willing to work with the committee and show them what we had as a priority from the previous committee.
Be a good start.
And there actually didn't know. Believe it or not, there's actually a number of things that got accomplished on the master plan, whether it was intentional or not.
Just means that the vision was actually consistent with the will of the people.
We got some things done, yes.
So, where do we go from here? Do we send a memo out so you can?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that if you take a look at it, there was supposed to be representation from a number of different other existing boards. So I think you're absolutely right. We send a memo out specifically to the chairs of those boards, see if we can start by filling them with people from the actual boards and commissions that are supposed
Yep.
to field it,
Yeah,
right?
we really should have someone from each of these.
Right. You know, and start there fundamentally.
So the planning board serves as the chairman. A member of the planning board serves as.
What boards are on the list, may I ask?
It says, a member of the planning board who shall serve as chairman, a member of the Board of Appeals, a member of the Conservation Commission, a member of the Board of Health, and a member of the Historical Commission.
We had none of those on the previous board. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
And not that that makes any difference, it just,
Yeah,
you know.
hopefully this time we Possibly can.
Yeah, I think what happened is we couldn't get them, so we wound up with ad hoc members.
And I think that's exactly what happened. You reach out and bring in whoever you can bring in. So.
Well, be a good place to start.
Yeah.
What we can do is we'll send emails out to each of the
Yeah.
chairs,
Yeah,
let them know, and try to get it in on their next agenda.
and there's nothing else we need to do for that then, right? We're just reaffirming it.
I was gonna say, maybe just a motion to reaffirm per the request of the planning board chair.
Sure.
Motion to reaffirm.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Appointment Cameron Courtney, on-call EMT basic.
I'll make a motion to appoint Cameron Courtney as a basic EMT.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Personnel committee discussion. What are we doing with the personnel committee?
Just a little bit of background, if you recall, a few meetings ago, there was a discussion generally regarding whether or not it's worth having a separate personnel board versus just having the personnel decisions come to the select board. And I guess there's a couple rules of thought on that. One is a separate personnel board if you can get sufficient membership on there with skill sets and expertise, maybe from a private sector or from other public sectors, there would be value added. But seeing as we're having difficulties finding people to actually fill it, it got to the point where we actually had 2 select board members on the personnel board. And then the question was raised, is it even worth having the personnel board?
From what I've done for research, it seems like with a small town like this, it's not really necessary to have a personnel board. But
Yeah, I'm gonna make the motion, where Beth and I are both on it. I'm just gonna make the motion to abandon the personnel board and have the selectmen serve as the personnel board until we have more interest.
I'll second it.
any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Capital Improvement Planning Committee appointment, Dr. Hosterman.
I'll make a motion to appoint Dr. Hosterman to the Capital Improvement Committee.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Insurance Advisory Committee appointment, Claudia Forget.
I'll make a motion to appoint Claudia Forget to our Insurance Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Sign 2025 liquor licenses, Bay Path Spirits, Central Package, and Brookfield Run and Gun Club. We're-
Make a motion to sign those 3 licenses.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approve select board minutes for 8/29/24, 9/4/24, 9/5/24, 9/19/24, 10/3/24.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as read.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And,
Motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Or is that your motion? I'll second it. Sorry.
Sorry.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.